I call this meeting of Township High School District 211 Board of Education to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Barron,
Here.
Mr. Bradley, Ms. Cabell,
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Mr. McGowan, Mr. Rosenblum,
Here.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Here. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next action item is entering closed session. The recommended action is that the board enter closed session to discuss self-evaluation, practices and procedures, or professional ethics when meeting with a representative of a statewide association of which the public body is a member. Probable or imminent litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the public body. Matter pertaining to an individual student, minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, and appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Ms. Cabell,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Okay. All right, I got 7:30. The recommended action is that the Board of Education return to open session. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Ms. Cabell,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mrs. Bradley, Mr. Bradley.
Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, thank you, and welcome to everyone. There are no recognitions this evening, so we will go right into our public comments. The board welcomes you and is pleased to listen to your comments this evening. It is important that you know this is a public board meeting and not a dialogue, so the board members will not be responding to your comments or answering questions at this time. As a reminder, the board meeting is being taped and live streamed. We ask that you value the procedures and decorum of our meeting and be respectful to those at the podium so they may be heard. When I call your name, please come forward to the podium and state your name for the record. Though not required, you may state if you are a resident of the district. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. You will receive a notification when you have 1 minute remaining. Any individual's unused time or place in order may not be deferred to another individual. If you wish a response from the superintendent, please leave your name and phone number with Mr. Teneper. All right, with that, our first speaker is R.G. Karafotalias, and followed by Michelle Mussman.
Hello, my name is R.G. Karafotias. I'm an Alton Heights resident, parent, and business owner. I want to thank you, all of you, for your public service. We appreciate you serving our community in a thankless role and for your willingness to make difficult decisions for our community. We are concerned about the stalled negotiations between the district and the Bears. The Cook County Assessor has way overassessed the Arlington Park property about 5 times what Churchill Downs paid. No rational business owner will develop this property given this figure, and that land will sit vacant if we cannot work out a deal. The last reported offer from the school boards back to the Bears is $7.9 million, $5 million more than what Churchill used to pay. This is despite the Bears not making any money, not running any races, and there being no children on the property. As Kevin Warren said, the school board has stopped communicating with the Bears, and we cannot solve this problem if we do not talk. We're worried the school boards are trying to wait out the birds. That is a dangerous game. Other communities want the birds in this multi-billion-dollar project, and they're calling. The birds are tearing down the grandstand to pay lower taxes. And now our students will get less money short-term and also long-term if this land is not developed. We have lost trust in our community when they hear that phone calls are not returned. Our community made it clear at the Touchdown Arlington Forum with Kevin Warren that we want the birds in Arlington Heights. We want to know what has been done in the 24 days since that event when Kevin Warren asked you back to the table. There is a fair deal available if we all work in good faith. Please get back to the table and help build a stronger northwest suburbs, both now and for the future of our children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Michelle Mussman, followed by Lynn Gillis.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I am Michelle Mussman, State Representative for the 56th District, and I am a proud resident of our District 211. I'm here tonight to speak to the issue of gun safety. According to the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, individuals living with a gun in their home are at double the risk of homicide and triple the risk of suicide. Those odds only worsen in homes where guns are not properly secured, and we know that 54% of our gun owners do not properly secure all of their guns. Suicide rates among teens and children were on the rise before the pandemic, and we know those numbers have only gotten worse. In fact, in 2020, gun violence surpassed traffic collisions as the main cause of death for teens and children in Illinois. Children, especially young children, are more likely to unintentionally fire a gun in their hand, harming themselves, killing themselves, or possibly a suicide friend or parent. Last year, I was pleased to support House Bill 5193, which allows and encourages school districts to add gun safety to their units of instruction. The state takes the importance of teaching gun safety to all people of all ages very seriously. That bill passed with nearly unanimous support. Additionally, the General Assembly this year has allocated more than $3 million to funding a statewide gun storage education campaign and increased the use of gun locks. Our state has taken bold steps to confront violence and access in recent years, creating the Safe to Help online interactive tool for students to seek help or report warning signs of school threats. We created the Office of Firearm Violence and Prevention. We passed the Protect Illinois Communities Act in January to ban assault weapons and limit magazine size limits. There is more that we can and should do to protect our citizens, especially our youth and children, and we believe that school districts like ours are critical allies in this process. We look forward to working with you on this. I thank you all for your service to our community, and again, thank you for letting me speak about this issue tonight.
Thank you. Lynn Gillis, followed by Kathy Riesberg.
Hello, my name is Lynn Gillis. I'm a resident of Arlington Heights, and I am very appreciative of being here and being given a moment to speak. You may or may not know that about 4.6 million American children live in homes where there is at least one loaded and unsecured gun. All we're asking is something really simple. All I'm asking is that the board consider having school districts help in the prevention of shootings by notifying families about safe gun storage. There are a wide variety of resources available to do so, and giving that knowledge, again, helps put prevention directly in our hands and gives us the opportunity to reduce some of the violence that we've seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Riesberg, followed by Kathy Neckrats.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Risberg, and as a taxpayer for over 45 years in this community, I want to thank you, the District 211 School Board, for listening to the different perspectives presented each month during this public comment time. I also want to thank you for valuing always safety, wellness, and respect for all students, and for honoring each member of your diverse student community by providing all students a sense of equity, inclusion, and the freedom to learn. And as the start of the new school year approaches, I'm hopeful that we will experience a renewed sense of unity in District 211 over the importance of taking a stand against hate, against book bans, and against gun violence. and taking a stand for the safe storage of all weapons owned in this community. The importance of safe storage of weapons became even more clear in my mind today when I visited the Children's Defense Fund website, which had reminders that gun violence is a leading cause of death for children ages 1 to 19, and that American civilians own more than 393 million guns, and that a child or teen is killed with a gun every 2 hours and 36 minutes, and that black children and teens are 4 times more likely to die from gun violence than their white peers. One would think that statistics like this would absolutely galvanize and unite parents and grandparents in every community to stand up, speak up, and take action to help end this absolutely senseless killing every 2 hours and 36 minutes of children in America. Yet we know that the unity we seek has been systematically subverted by dark money-funded politicians. These politicians have taken steps for decades to spread disinformation and tap into the hate and fear so commonly used by neo-Nazis, Christian nationalists, and white supremacists. They have done this to erode our trust in you, our duly elected school board members, and divide us as a community and as a nation, one community at a time, in an effort to increase their political base and campaign contributions, especially from the NRA, and to protect guns and not protect the lives of our children. However, the good news is that we, the majority of people, do value the lives of our children over the sale of guns, and we will never let the smokescreen of hate speech or fear-mongering fuel a debate about book bans or divide us as a community. Instead, we will focus on protecting the lives of our children and focus on finding common ground as we take steps to become peace builders in a world torn apart by violent words and violent actions. So I invite you all to be guided by the words of poet Amanda Gorman, who beckons us to lift our gazes to not what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Thank you, and may you enjoy the rest of the summer and have a great start to the school year.
Thank you. Kathy Nykratz, and I apologize if I mispronounce it.
Hi, I'm Kathy Niekras, and I'm kind of new to coming to the school board meetings. I've been here a number of times and really I'm learning a lot about a district that I've been a part of for many years here at 211. And what I find is that education seems to be the most important part of what you're doing, and you're doing a great job, by the way. So I'm finding that gun safety, gun storage is part of education. Here at 211, you're teaching how to eat more nutritiously. I'm sure you're offering better foods in your cafeteria. You're showing the children how it is better and more healthy for them. You're educating them in nutrition. You're educating them in physical education, even those who are not athletes. You're helping them learn the tools on how to be a healthier and more fit person. Driver's ed, taking a pretty scary vehicle and educating them to do a really good job in learning how to drive, the rules of the road, teaching them how to maneuver in a car that can be very deadly. Now we have a new drug curriculum education that has been brought to Illinois, and it's very exciting. So we're going to be able to teach our children in a very thorough way the problems of drug abuse and how important it is that we know all the facts. To me, gun safety, gun storage properly is just part of the education system. We have something deadly that is in people's homes, just like that car in the garage is in people's homes, and we have to make sure that they're safe, that they're locked up properly, so that our children can feel comfortable, so they can feel comfortable going to other people's homes, they can feel comfortable coming here. So just part of education. Thank you so much for listening to me, and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And last is Susan Clark.
Hi, I'm Susan Clark, and I am a resident of the district and a proud parent of 2 alumni. I spoke here last month, and promised afterwards to send material, which I did via email to the superintendent and the board president. And I brought packets today, one for each of the board member and the superintendent, and I hope that I can present those to you. So as a reminder, I'm a leader in the Be Smart program. Be Smart is a group of gun owners and other community members that promote gun education. We are a nonpartisan group. We are proud of our 501(c) status. We are not at all political. Our only goal is to create a gun-safe environment and provide gun-safe education. As was noted earlier, the Illinois legislature this year expanded the definition of school safety education to include gun safety, and the Illinois Education Association supports the use of our Be Smart materials for that purpose. We have a very robust education program on our website that's available for free for use for any community member or organization. People mistakenly believe that ready access to their guns at home help make them safe. But when they have children in that home, it's far from being safe. And we sincerely believe, as gun owners ourselves, that if we can provide clear education to them on how to safely lock and store their guns, that we can have a direct impact on this community health crisis for our children. We hope that you'll support providing this educational material to our parents in the community. We know that the District 211 has already a robust communication plan in providing other health and safety material going home to parents, and that providing this information along with that existing and in that existing structure should be a very easy and productive method to guarantee that this issue is understood and acted on by our parent community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, thank you to all of our speakers. The next item on the agenda is, there are no presentations this evening, so the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. I've already had one request to remove item C, the resolutions authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, that be removed. Are there any other items that a board member wishes removed? Okay. If not, then I will do the first recommended action. The first action is that the consent agenda, with the removal of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 15th, 2023, and the removal of item C, resolutions authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, be removed, and the remaining be approved as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. The second recommended action is that the minutes of the regular meeting of June 15th, 2023 be approved as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, then, roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
I'm sorry.
I apologize. I'm sorry, could you repeat the motion, please?
That the minutes of the regular meeting of June 15th, 2023 be approved as presented.
Okay, thank you. Second,
All right.
the motion? I'm
Any
sorry. I'm
Yeah,
lost
we
now.
made the motion.
Yeah,
Second.
second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Abstain.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. The third recommended action. All right, there's lots of numbers, so please be patient with me. The third recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the resolutions authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, which seek assessed valuation reductions in excess of $100,000 for property tax year 2022. Docket numbers 2022 25143, 2022-25147, 2022-23576, 22-25216, 2022-26112, 2022-22748, 22-25180, 2022-22739, 22-24887, 2022-25145, 22-25181, 2022-22524, 2022-25536, 2022-22750, 2022-24651, 2022-22967, 2022-24833, 22-24689, 22-24686, 2022-24836, 2022-24328, 2022-23871, 2022-22749, 2022-25534, 22-26456, and 22-22668, and further authorize Franzik and Hodges, Losey, Eisenheimer, Roderick, Cohn, and Boards of Education legal representative to file requests to intervene in appeal proceeding forms with the Property Tax Appeal Board on properties for which the district receives notification of appeal. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second,
All right.
I would like to amend the motion that we vote on all docket numbers presented with the exception of docket number 2022-24328.
All right. Do I have a second on the amendment?
I second.
All right. We're going to vote on the amendment to remove this item. May I just state that all of the ones that I just read, with the exception of docket 2022-24328, work as the amendment, or do you want me to read everything again?
I don't think you need to read the entire
right.
thing again.
So we're voting on the amendment. It is to remove docket 2022-24328 from the motion that was just stated. All right, I need a vote on it. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Nay.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
No. Okay, the motion passes, so we have the amendment. So we have all of the other motions, and then this one will be voted on separately.
Okay, so we have all the other dockets.
All the other dockets, with the exception of 2022-24328, that we're going to be voting on.
Madam President, may I make a comment, a brief explanation of what is happening, at least from my perspective? These are, as described in the public agenda, resolutions authorizing our intervention in proceedings before the Property Tax Appeal Board in excess of $100,000 worth of relief. Okay, and the reason why I asked, much like last month, to have one docket voted on separately is that all of the dockets, with the exception of one, are regarding commercial properties. The one docket that I asked to be voted on separately is for a condo association, which is a residential property. So that's the distinction and the reason why I put forward such an amendment, to vote on those in two different instances opposed to the one.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on voting on all of the prior numbers that I had read? Okay, May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Nay.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. All right, that motion carries. The next item, the recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the resolutions authorizing intervention and proceeding before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, which seek assessed valuation reductions in excess of $100,000 for property tax year 2022, docket 2022-24328, and further authorize Franzik and Hodges, Lozey, Eisenheimer, Roderick, Cohn as the Board of Education's legal representatives to file requests to intervene in appeal proceeding forms with the Property Tax Appeal Board on properties for which the district receives notification of appeal. All right, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, now we open it up for discussion. Anything else that you would like to add, Ms. Cavill?
No, but thank you.
Okay. I do have a concern about this. I understand that we're concerned about our taxpayers, as we should be. However, I'm uncomfortable pulling something out when I know that if this group or this condo meets the criteria of what we had established of having our legal firms go after these properties, I think we need to continue with it because we're setting a bad precedent here. If we keep removing them, someone else is gonna have to pay those taxes. That's what happens. Whether it's, they get their assessment lowered, somebody else's is gonna get a little bit higher, or it has to get distributed somewhere, because we do like the services that are provided from the taxes. Maybe what needs to be done is a review. Instead of excess of 100,000, maybe that amount needs to be changed, and that's something that we can look at going forward of how we can possibly do that. But I'm uncomfortable setting the precedent of doing this.
Madam President, I certainly understand where you're coming from, and honestly, in the spirit, I largely, a big part of me wants to agree. I'm not arguing that one approach is more or less fair than the other. That's not my argument, and I would certainly be in support of a review of the policy for the fiscal threshold on which it's built. That might be a nice compromise, as an example of what I'm trying to say. Regardless of the consensus of the board, whether they support or do not support this docket in particular, you know, I think as individuals, we all have our point of view, and at the end of the day, we have to, you know, I feel like we all have to come to a point where we're going to stand, and this happens to be mine. So this is where I've decided to draw the line under the policy as it currently stands, which is, you know, to me, there is a distinction between commercial properties, as an example, and you know, resolutions intervening in residential property condo associations that affects a significant number of units. But I can certainly understand board members who, you know, unilaterally, as you know, as a fair approach, say approve all interventions as an example, as an execution of fairness, and certainly those who say, you know, we shouldn't intervene in any of these. I certainly understand both those points of view. This happens to be mine.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or discussion?
Yes.
Please.
Madam President, thank you for removing the item from the consent agenda. I appreciate the compliance with the request. I don't think our board should be picking winners and losers. Our communities are balanced, they're zoned. Industrial is as important as commercial, is as important as residential. I think it's not to the school district's benefit to be hostile towards businesses and aggressively pursue tax appeals. We have the recapture levy, which was passed by the state to recover any funds that are lost through the PTAB process, and I think we should respect that. And I think it's in the best interest of the taxpayers and the community to not pay the legal fees and support the attorneys to chase these things down. I think that smart business owners are trying to lower their appeals by 99,000, and that's why the list isn't longer. But that's my perspective. We should be equitable and fair with all the members of our community.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I think when there's comments related to the cost of these appeals versus the benefit of these appeals, I think that the information available for the public and this board to review that's attached to the agenda item specifically on our website shows the cost versus benefit to the district, and on the positive side, the benefits far outweigh the expense of any legal fees associated to these appeals.
I also would like to point out that because all this information is publicly available, people are welcome to, look up the individual docket numbers to see exactly what sort of businesses these dockets represent. An example, one of them on the list tonight is Target Corporation. Okay, so there's a wide breadth of businesses listed under these, and that's all publicly available information.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, so the motion is on docket 2022-24328, and it's authorizing the intervention. Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Barron?
No.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Okay,
Mr. Dombrowski?
Nay.
Mr. McGowan?
Nay.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Before I vote, could you clarify, is this approving the intervention for the
That's-
single docket number?
yes, that is what I had said. That the Board of Education approve the resolutions authorizing interventions in proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, which seek assessed valuation reductions in excess of $100,000, property tax year 2022, and docket number 2022-24328, and then the attorneys that are representing us, and we filing them to request to intervene. So the motion is that we are asking for them to intervene in the property tax appeal.
For the Schaumburg Terrace Condo Association specifically?
Correct.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I think maybe we need to redo the roll call because Ms. Cavill,
I was unclear as well, so yes.
we're voting for them, have our attorneys intervene.
So
On the
yea
property.
means intervene, nay means we do not.
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
So I'd like to call for a recount, please.
Ms. Barron?
No.
Ms. Cavill?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Nay.
No, I'm sorry.
All right, let's try this one more time.
I'm sorry. Let me just I'm having a health issue tonight. This is why my glasses are coming on and off, and it's making things a little bit difficult for me, so I apologize to everybody.
All right. I would suspect, Ms. Cavill, that you would be voting against this.
That's right.
All right, so Ms. Cavill,
Is a no. Mr. Dombrowski?
Again, no.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenblum?
No.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
I'm voting yes. And Ms. Behrens?
No.
All right. So there are 4 noes, so the motion fails. Okay. We're all good? All right, thank you. Thank you for your patience there. All right, then that takes us to, give me just one moment, to our special reports. And the first is the Freedom of Information Act requests. It's information. Any questions there? All right. The next is District 211 English Learner Information and Program Overview. It's information. Dr. Small?
Since 2013, there's been an increase in the number of students enrolled in District 211 who are English learners. In the past 3 years, that number of students has significantly increased. This report details the number of students and the recommended The recommendations for change in the program that have begun this year but will not be fully implemented until the following year. The change accounts for an additional, the change accounts for the addition of more elective courses in place of multiple periods of ESL courses in order to allow an increase for on-time graduation with additional room for taking career and college development coursework for our EL students.
I know Dr. Small had given us information in regards to us. Are there any questions?
I have one very simple question, and my question is, are we as a school district compliant with state mandated regulations associated to the education of EL students?
It's a great question it's a simple question with a complicated answer. So the short version is, yes, we are in compliance. We work directly with the state at all stages of our EL programming, including having it approved at the beginning of the year and then working with them throughout. And so if there's a specific part of it that you want me to speak to, I can speak to specific parts of the compliance.
No, overall. I just want to make sure that in all areas and aspects of our providing education to EL students, that we are compliant with state regulations and requirements.
So if there were ever a situation where we weren't compliant with exactly what the legislation says, then that's when we work together with the state for a plan to become compliant. And so the answer being, we work directly with the state on all compliance to regulation is the clearest that I can put it.
So my question is, are we currently, will we be at the beginning of this upcoming school year compliant in all aspects of EL student education?
We have submitted our plan to the state, and they have approved that plan.
Well, let me add to that. Maybe that might clarify. Are there some things that we're going to be doing this coming school year that we have not been doing before that is enhancing the learning?
We have a program change in place regarding in regards to the program review that we conducted for much of the year last year. So some of those changes are taking place this year. All of them will take place during the 24-25 school year.
Okay. All right, and as usual, we'll get a report as to how things are progressing.
May I make some comments, Madam President?
Yes.
Anybody watching board meetings has known that a number of people participating in public comments over the last several meetings have been talking specifically about the English Language Learners Program. And of course, that didn't precipitate the report that's being presented that was done all last year, et cetera. But it is certainly talking about the same sorts of things that are discussed in the report that's attached to this agenda that's up for discussion. Speaking to Mr. Rosenblum's question, I had the same question. It's very important to me, and I'm sure every member of this board and administration, that we're in compliance. And we had a conversation that I felt very, very pleased about. And one thing that was noted to me that I felt like I should have known from the beginning, but I hadn't thought of when I was thinking about this issue, is, of course, that one thing that was brought up specifically in public comments was, the mandate speaking to once you have 20 students of a certain population, English language learner population, you need to provide native language instruction across 4 content areas. I was very concerned that we meet all mandated requirements, that one being one. And something that didn't occur to me from the beginning, maybe because I work in elementary, is, of course, that's logistically harder to organize, although not meet, but organize at a high school setting where you have students that are not all coming in as freshmen. Not every English language learner student that we have comes in is a freshman that can go into a freshman class, which makes the logistics and the practicalities of organizing such a thing, you can see, much more complicated than just second grade, as an example. So that's one of the reasons, I believe, for the simple answer, complicated question, is that information also changes depending on, again, something that was spoken to in public comments, who shows up and when. And that is, certainly my understanding is that statistically you can highlight trends and make educated guesses, but you can't really know for certain. So there has to be a balance between forward planning and flexibility to respond. That certainly made my understanding of the issue more well-rounded than it was before I got the report. And so the other comment that I wanted to make, of course, too, is that the other issue regarding students who are experiencing mid-semester schedule changes. And, speaking for myself, I think that should be absolutely minimized. I think that provides a level of inconsistency that just adds another challenge on top of many challenges that these students presumably face. And so I would hope that, working towards the minimization of such changes be an important priority. You assured me that that certainly is the case. And one thing that I wonder is, depending on who shows up and when, if that overwhelms our reserved space, the space that we're educated guessing will be filled to minimize changes, if that overwhelms it and we have to make a new section. I was wondering if, for example, the TAs, native language speaking teachers assistants that we have, could then at least follow those resection students and provide a level of consistency even when those changes can't be avoided. Now, again, that's in the weeds. It's not really the board member's role to do. But I was excited to hear that those are the sorts of things that are being put in place for next year, which I'm very interested to see the response of. And then my last follow-up question was, do we have some reserve space, for kids that we're assuming are going to show up to, again, try and minimize those schedule changes, which I would hope as a board that we would agree with. Like, we want to minimize schedule changes. That's a broad overview decision. And I was reassured that that is indeed the case. So the recommendation I was especially excited about was the increased focus on recruitment of native language speaking professionals. So more native language speaking teachers that we would have at our disposal, which would be, I'm very excited about.
And I appreciate that, and I'm sure that it's very, very complicated from my speaking with teachers as well, and getting into the schools and speaking with the people who have to deal with it every day. But I also know that it's very difficult to staff to meet the needs of these students and the challenges that we have from a recruiting perspective. And I'd like to encourage our district to review how we recruit education professionals. And I've mentioned this in the past as well, that there are different things that could be done across the district and all the administrators that we have to support recruiting and maybe, broaden that spans, that net a little bit. And I know we've done different things like the job fair we just had, which I actually know somebody who got a job from it. So I know that we're trying different things and partnering with different organizations to try to support that. So I know a huge issue, and this is, it all comes down to impact on our students, right? And making sure that they're getting the right education and getting treated properly and all the things that go along with that. But I know that a real difficult underlying challenge is staffing and being able to support what we need to do as a district. So thank you for your continued efforts in that regard.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes, so the report says that this is planned to be implemented during 24-25, with some of it being implemented before. What can we expect going into the 23-24 school year from this report as a reasonable implementation?
In terms of what are we implementing for this school year?
Right.
So each school has been able to implement some of the changes. For example, depending on the population of students in each level, and one of the recommendations is that we go from 5 levels of EL, what used to be called ESL courses, down to 4. And so each school did an analysis of what level could potentially be condensed right at the point where we made the final decision, which was late in the school year. So for some schools, potentially they won't have a level 2. For some schools, they won't have a level 3. For some schools, they'll switch up to level 5. And so as the program review progressed throughout the year, as you can imagine, there was a lot to it. There were a lot of questions that we needed to answer. There was a lot of research and a lot of data involved. And so by the time we were able to make the final recommendations, that was after the course scheduling process. That was well into the staffing process and the scheduling process. And so we made the decision, in order to not delay that for the school year, that each school would take a look at what they could do individually based on the recommendations, and then that every school would be prepared for the full program change in 24-25. The other thing I would say to that is the decisions were made after the spring curriculum, and so some of those curricular changes need to come to the curriculum committee in the fall, and then subsequently to the Board of Education for approval. And so none of those changes will take place until they're approved by this body.
Madam President, I also have another question. What can the board expect different in the 23-24 school year from the 22-23 school year when we see increases mid-year with ESL learners?
So
Mr. Schumacher, can you speak up a little bit? I don't know, there's kind of a humming noise or something, and it's...
Sure. So there are changes that occur mid-year in all of our programs when they have to, when the staffing size and the number of students that have moved into the district necessitate it. Specifically for EL, when those changes need to occur at the semester, it's done by a collaborative process between the school student services director and the school EL department chair. And so they look at what students have potentially moved in, what needs to change, and they really, in all of the EL, we look through two lenses simultaneously. We look through the compliance lens to Mr. Rosenblum's first question, and then we look through the instructional lens. And so those decisions are made instructionally for the student. And I'll give you an example for a math course. Potentially, we begin the year with 20 EL students in a particular math course. And then throughout the course of the first semester, more EL students move in and enroll with us. And so by the end of the first semester, we have, let's say, 32 students, and that's too many for the math course. And so what would happen was the student services director and the EL chair would get together, and they would look at, in collaboration with the math department, the achievement of those students. And they would say, what's the best way to make this work? Sometimes what happens is there's a level of achievement that's different in the course, and it's actually a better situation to split that course into two. And you may take 14 students there and put them in another course, or you may just split that course and make 2 of them. And that's some of the public comments that you heard about earlier this year, was when that has to happen. Certainly, that's not a common occurrence, and certainly that's not our first decision, is to split a class. But when we're forced to, because of changes that happen after the first day of school, we look heavy through the instructional lens on what makes the most sense for student achievement in that case.
Madam President, just to follow up, what I understood was that our EL enrollment has increased by over 3 from the graphs that were presented in the report, and that the response in 2022-23 school year was something that we don't anticipate happening in the 23-24 school year, and that it's not a common occurrence?
That was not what I said. I did say it's not a common occurrence.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay, so I guess, Madam President, my concern and question is, are we planning contingencies at the beginning of the school year to make this less intrusive mid-year to staff and students?
Sure. So if I could have a crystal ball, and that crystal ball would tell me what students were going to come, what level they were going to come at, what courses they were going to need in order to meet our graduation requirements, I would certainly ensure that those spaces were available. Unfortunately, it's a very complicated process, especially when a student from another country moves in, to determine where they are placed in classes and what they need. And so while we attempt and are aware of the trends, and we've attempted to look at past trends to see are those going to continue, and where we put our students. It's tough to predict exactly what courses, exactly what academic departments, and exactly what levels will need more space or less space than others.
I know that students are registering now. When will we have an idea as to how many students we have that would be in EL classes?
So we have a really good idea now of our existing students and our incoming freshmen and anyone outside of that who has registered with us and identified that they're going to enroll. We have exact numbers on that at this point.
And how does that look as far as classrooms and teachers, TAs?
Any student that's registered with us now or is coming that we know about has a course schedule and therefore would be in those classes. I think the question we have is the unknown students that we don't know about, and many of them will come by the first day of school, and we can get them in a schedule and have them in seats in classes, and then the unknown is how many are going to come throughout the course of the first semester. We have trend data on that as well, per school, per student, and then it's difficult to then break that down by how many are going to need a biology course, how many are going to need a history course, because it's very dependent on the history of what they come in with and where they're at.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No, I've got more of a comment just for context. I don't. According to the report, like I said, this was a one-off. The last decade or so, the trend for incoming EL students has been pretty consistent and almost predictable. And 2022, 2023, it jumped up from like just under 1,200 to 1,600 English learner students. So there's been this huge increase out of nowhere. So I just wanted to make sure I said it for the record. So it wasn't as if we weren't prepared. It was just we have a one-off year, and these are the things put in process to kind of make sure we eliminate it and be better prepared for next time.
And that's a valid point because that was something that was unexpected, and I think the school did the best that they could of accommodating all of those individuals who came here. And, that's a beautiful thing to be able to support those kids and their families. Any other questions? All right. Then the next item is the tentative budget transportation fund. Dr. Small?
The business office continues to prepare the 2023-2024 annual budget and present them as they become available. The transportation budget is shared tonight, and the operations and maintenance fund and the educational fund will be presented with the tentative budget as a whole in August. At the August meeting, the board takes action to allow for public inspection, the budget for 30 days prior to its adoption at the September meeting. The budget must be adopted by September 30th of each year.
Any questions there? Okay, then that takes us to...
Madam President,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
can we take a 5-minute recess break?
Okay, if we'll take a break then. All right, thank you for your patience. We are back in session. Okay, we're good on the tentative budget transportation fund. Any other questions there? Okay, if not, then that takes us to District 211 safety and security personnel. This is an information item. Dr. Small.
If I may, commitment to safety and security within all Township High School District 211 schools remains a critical priority. During first semester of last year, the board approved safety and security upgrades throughout the district. In addition to many improvements to safety and security procedures, practices, and technologies that the district has implemented, a new classification of personnel dedicated to safety and security has been created, the District 211 Safety and Security Personnel. The primary purpose of this position is to ensure the safety and security and welfare of all students, faculty, staff, and visitors to our campuses. This position works in tandem with the school and central office administration, school resource officers, and student supervisors to ensure student and staff safety, maintain order, monitor school facilities, and respond to incidents and conditions that may pose a risk to our school safety. These staff members are trained in a number of safety, interpersonal, and security-specific areas, including emergency and medical responses, equity mindset training, nonviolent intervention and de-escalation techniques. This staff is visibly identifiable by the black shirts they wear with the safety and security lettering on their shirts. They are present on each campus throughout the day and after school hours during the high volume of school-related events to assist our administrators and our school resource officers. Our schools always remain very busy from 6 a.m. through the late evening. The safety and security personnel being present after school hours and into the late evening allows for our students and staff to have another resource for support and be available to assist them.
Any questions?
I have a few questions, but they don't have to be answered at the table. My first question is, are these individuals, are they eligible to be armed on campus?
No. Well, eligible. They are not armed on campus.
Regardless of eligibility.
That's correct.
Are they contracted or full-time employees?
They're full-time employees.
Okay, so they're permanent positions created. How many positions?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
Will they be members of a particular union, or will they be independent of union membership?
They are currently non-union employees.
And are they governed under which policies?
Non-union employees.
Okay, any other questions? And again, just as a reminder, we do get the package in advance. If you can please ask the questions ahead of time, then that way we can be prepared, or the administration, I should say, can be prepared to answer. All right, there is no unfinished business, so that'll take us to new business. And the first item, recommended action, is on Clear Software, that the board approve the purchase of Thomson Reuters Clear Software for a 3-year term at an initial cost of $24,835.20, with an annual increase of 5% in years 2 and 3 of the contract. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion, Dr. Small?
Every year, our Student Services Department personnel work diligently to register and enroll eligible students and families. In accordance with Board Policy JECB, residency and tuition, in order to ensure that all of our students are eligible to enroll, it is essential that our staff review these enrollments. The makeup of today's families and living arrangements includes circumstances that are markedly more varied than a single-unit family residing in their own home or apartment. Students who qualify for enrollment under the provisions of the McKinney-Vento Act are enrolled immediately and provided the resources that they need. Typically, during the summer and into first semester, staff reviews hundreds of residency cases and requests from families across the district from a spectrum of different circumstances. Our Clear Residency Verification Services is an online service that would allow administrators to determine with confidence that the residences our families indicate where they reside are accurate according to publicly available records. This is an invaluable tool for enrollment and registration processes, making them more efficient and resulting in our student services staff energy and in, being more productive.
Any questions? Okay, none. Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next recommended action is that the Board of Education authorize the purchase and implementation of the Red Rover software at a cost of $4,000 for implementation and training in the 2023-2024 school year, and $36,540 as an annual fee for the 2024-2025 school year. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Dr. Small?
In an organization of approximately 2,000 employees, effective human resources software is essential. Tonight's recommendation is to approve the cost for the implementation and training this year, and then the fee for the 24-25 year for a more effective software solution designed for a high school setting related to absence and substitute management, as well as timekeeping for hourly staff.
Any questions? Okay. Then may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion passes. The next recommended action, there are 2 steps. First recommended action is that the Board of Education approve construction of a student-built home during the 2023-2024 and 2024-2025 school years on a district-owned lot on Louise Lane. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next recommended action is that the budget for construction costs, consulting, and contingency fees for the student-built home located in Palatine be set in the amount of $680,000 and be spread over the 2023-2024 and 2024-2025 fiscal year budgets, and the construction costs, consulting fees, and contingency fees for the Gloria Drive home in Elgin be set at $366,029 for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mrs. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. Next recommended action is that the Board of Education renew its membership in EdRed for the 2023-2024 school year at a fee of $5,350. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
No.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The next recommended action is that the Board of Education approve Sound Incorporated to upgrade the public address system at Palatine High School and Schaumburg High School at a total cost not to exceed $1,010,163. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next item, the recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the pre-approval form for future expense reimbursement for Anna Klimkowitz and Stephen Rosenblum to attend the EdRed Legislative Breakfast Meeting, August 3rd, 2023, as submitted. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next item is discussion Board Policy Section 8 negotiations. Dr. Smo.
At its June 15th, 2023 board meeting, the board asked that the policy committee make a recommendation to keep or remove board policy section H, negotiations, which currently has no policies in place. At this time, I'm not recommending any change until the fall, as the policy committee is currently working with the Illinois Association of School Boards to evaluate the benefits of a service they provide, which is called the IASB Policy Manual Customization Project. If this customization is recommended to and approved by the board at a future meeting, this would begin the process of aligning the District 211 policies by section and number to the ISBE policy reference, Education Services Subscription. If this process is recommended, the board would still be able to make their own policies as needed, but it would support in the efficiency of policies needed change due to the numerous legislative mandates each year and set a standard system for annual policy review with the support of the IASB. The policy committee will have a recommendation in this fall. Until this time, the board report includes a history of the section titles for the board policies.
Any questions in regards to it? Okay. All right, then that will take us to the next item. And that is, hang on one second. That is, the recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the recommendations based on findings of the hearing officer. And may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
If I may?
Yes.
At the May 11, 2023 Board of Education meeting, the board hired attorney Carolyn Roselli as the hearing officer for complaints filed under board policy IIAA, selection of instructional materials. Tonight, the recommendations based on findings from the hearing are presented in regard to comprehensive sexual education lessons and Edgenuity lessons for opt-out students.
Any questions? All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
No.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next item, recommended action, is that the Board of Education hereby accept the sale of the property at 358 West Michigan Avenue, Palatine, to Erich and Courtney Nath in the amount of $930,000. Further, $30,000. Further, that the board authorize the superintendent or designee to sign any documents for or on behalf of the board to consummate the sale. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
What a beautiful home.
Yes, it is. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is potential topics for future discussion.
I have one.
Okay?
So first, I want to thank those who spoke regarding safe gun storage. I would like to request an item for future discussion be that we discuss the engagement of local law enforcement as possible resources to communicate and promote safe gun storage. It was mentioned that during the part about our new safety and security personnel, that our district is committed to school safety and security as a critical priority for our district. And in so considering that, I would like to request that our school administration and leadership, that there's a consensus among this board to ask our administration to engage with local law enforcement to discuss how to partner with them as a resource to help guide the communication and encouragement to our students and parents and others in the community via website or other medium to have them properly store their firearms.
Can you kind of summarize that? What would you like the board to be talking about?
Well, first, I'd like the administration to reach out to local law enforcement and have discussions with them on how we can partner with them in this effort, and then come back to the board with how we might do that, or recommendations or considerations that we can further discuss at next month's board meeting,
All right.
specifically around safe gun storage in homes that our
Right.
students live in or potentially would visit.
All right, let me see if I have this clarified. We need consensus from the board to bring this back as a topic to see how we can have police involvement in the school safety.
To have partnership with them as a resource to help us with the publicity and encouragement and promotion of proper gun safe storage.
All right, so, Ms. Cavill?
Well, it just occurs to me, I'm happy to go this direction and have it be on discussion, but always being a pragmatic person, I'm always happy to save time, and I'm willing to make that a motion, you know, up or down vote, without going through the formality of having a discussion next meeting. But if everybody's more comfortable with having a discussion and then bringing forward such a motion for direction, I'm just putting it out there.
Madam President, I would discourage that, as it's not posted on the agenda.
Correct,
And I
it is
don't
not.
believe we can
It is
take
not.
action on items not on the agenda.
Appreciate that.
Correct, it
To-
is not.
to follow up with Mr. Rosenblum's point and some of the comments this evening, I think education with gun ownership is very important. I would also like to add to the discussion offering a FOID class through the district.
All right, let me see if there is consensus first to bring this up as a topic. I don't know if it can happen at next month's meeting.
So
I do have a question, though. Dr. Small, State Rep Mussman was talking about the law that's gone into effect.
House Bill 5193.
Okay. Has that been signed, and do we have information in regards to that?
So I don't know whether it's been signed or what that process is, but it has passed by both houses. So what it does do is it allows gun education in schools.
All right.
It does not mandate it, it allows it.
All right, then maybe along with this, we can get a little more information about this law once it's signed and see how that fits in. I guess going along with the police input, I'm just wondering, are there times where police are involved in kind of a natural connection with us that maybe they can then share information? So if we can look at those types of things. All right, let me ask, is there consensus to have this discussion at a future meeting, hopefully not too far out, and see where we go? Ms. Behrens, I'll start with you.
Aye.
And Mr. Rosenblum? Yes.
Obviously.
Okay, Ms. Cavill?
Aye, yes.
Mr. Dombrowski for the conversation? Okay, and Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Okay, and I support that. All right, so we'll put that out with Dr. Small. Is there any other information you need?
Well, it'll be a good discussion time because there are a lot of ideas that are bubbling that need to be discussed, whether we're doing them or not doing them.
Okay. All right, but we'll
Thank
we'll have the topic out there. All right, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more information in regards to that, to the law and what that expectation is and what we're allowed to do. Okay. All right. Anything else there? All right, with that, we're going to go to committee reports, and the first is Ed Red.
All right, thank you. So, quick updates. Ed Red is having their legislative breakfast on August 3rd. So thank you for approving the expenses associated to that this evening. Ed Red is planning to host a webinar about new arrivals. And they're hosting it specifically for legislators. In my connection with the executive director, she's going to let me know details as they are put in place, and I will share that with our superintendent, who can disseminate that to us accordingly. The State Board of Education will be conducting a listening tour. This was also put out by Ed Red, about their state literacy plan. They already held a session in Chicago on July 10th, and they're hosting a virtual listening session on July 31st for anybody that might be interested. Ed Red is collaborating with Legislative Education Network of DuPage to draft and file legislation for this fall to prohibit the use of schools as polling places. So more to come on that. Bridget Peach, the executive director of Ed Red, has offered to come to an upcoming District 211 board meeting and provide us with a legislative update, which, in my discussion with her, would be during open session as a presentation to us on all the wonderful things that are going on at a legislative level that directly impact our school district. And I would like to ask if there is consensus on this board to invite her to come to an upcoming meeting, and it could be August, September, even October, I guess, to come and deliver a presentation to us from Ed Red's perspective on what's going on legislatively in the state for our school district. So I'd like to propose, Madam President, that we ask the board for consensus as to whether there's interest in inviting Bridget Peach, the executive director of Ed Red, to come and give us a legislative update.
All
All right.
Point of order, can we do this under this agenda item? Committee
Well,
report?
it should have been under the topics for future discussion.
Fair enough. I just want to make sure, you're more familiar with the rules than I am. I just want to make sure we're okay if we do that.
I think we're,
Okay.
I would suspect we're okay. Let me ask for consensus. Mr. McGowan? I'm going to start at that end. Mr. Dombrowski?
No, I think it's important to keep board business in the time where we have staff and decision-making to just the business on our agendas.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cavill?
Abstain.
Ms. Behrens?
Sure.
All right, 1, 2, 3. I'm not certain. I know we get our reports. I don't know what she would add to it. So I would probably say no. So then that makes us a tie, and the vote doesn't go forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, that takes us to District 211 Foundation Report. We had a meeting, getting very organized, which is amazing. It's absolutely outstanding for the foundation. We voted on the slate of officers. Dan Artman will be the chair, vice chairs Robin Chesik and Matt Eggemeyer, secretary Kate Finneran, and treasurer is going to be Will Hinshaw, which is a name that's familiar. They talked very briefly also about the Realtors Against Homelessness, and they're going to have their upcoming golf outing. It's set for September 27th, 2023 at the Schaumburg Golf Course, and we'll get more information in regards to that. Okay, all right, so those are.
Madam
I'm sorry.
President, can we get a tally on the consensus for the legislative update?
Okay, Mr. McGowan, you voted?
Yes,
Your consensus was yes?
correct.
Oh, then maybe Mr. Dombrowski, you were no, correct?
That is correct.
Myself, I was no, and Mr. Rosenblum was a yes, and
So that's
Ms. Behrens is a yes.
3-2, right?
Okay, then I apologize that it did pass the consensus. Thank you for pointing that out. 3 in favor of it and 2 opposed.
And one
So that was the
abstention.
majority.
And one abstention, I
Yeah,
believe.
but the abstention doesn't count.
Yep, thank
We
you.
have a long presentation scheduled for both August and September. Those are
Okay.
the budget, and September is the academic presentation. They're
Mr.
both very
Rosenblum, are you
lengthy.
flexible in your expectations for timing?
Mr. Rosenblum?
Are you
what-
flexible?
Oh,
in your
no,
expectations?
absolutely.
Okay.
She offered. She offered to come and present to us.
So how long
So-
is she expecting to speak?
2-3 hours? No, I'm just
Okay.
kidding.
We're good? We'll have snacks.
I guess my question to you, Madam President, is how much time should we offer?
I don't know, 10 minutes?
Okay.
We may have questions then. I don't know, because I'm kind of,
Can that be, Madam President, can that aspect be determined at a later date?
yes, yeah,
I'll work with her on that.
yeah.
Thank you.
We'll leave that for Dr. Small to coordinate. All right, anything else? Then we have our upcoming events. School starts, first day of classes, August 14th. All right, then that takes us to our next recommended action, and it is that the board enter closed session to discuss self-evaluation, practices and procedures, or professional ethics when meeting with a representative of a statewide association for which the public body is a member. Probable or imminent litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the public body. Matter pertaining to an individual student, minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, and appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. And motion carries. The recommended action is that the board return to open session, and it's 9:59 PM. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill, Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye. Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. The next recommended action is retirement request. That the Board of Education accepts the retirement request of Andreas Acosta, effective May 2027, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Deborah Bordes, effective December 2023, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. David Graliak, effective June 2027, consistent with the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Elizabeth Howard, effective May 2027, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Donald Larson, effective June 2027, according to the master contract of the District 211 Operations Maintenance Group. And Heidi McDonald, effective May 2027, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Any discussion?
I need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye. Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye, motion carries. Next item is, the recommended action is that the closed session minutes of December 15, 2022, January 19, 2023, February 16, 2023, March 16, 2023, April 13, 2023, May 11, 2023, and May 25, 2023 no longer require confidential treatment and are to be approved and placed on file. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye. Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item is that the Board of Education authorize settlement in the pending workers' compensation matter as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye. Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Motion carries. The next item is that the Board of Education approve the written decision of the Uniform Grievance Complaint, GAC/JA/KAA, and approve the written decision as discussed in closed session and direct the board president to convey the same to complainants. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye. Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Motion carries. And with that, there's no other business to come before the board. The board president declares this meeting of the Board of Education adjourned at 10:03 PM. Thank you.